Kerbal Space Program has a reputation of one of the most difficult simulator games ever, as if simulator games were easy to begin with. But after launching dozens of rockets that all resulted in a tragedy and death of a silly green guy, I kinda see where people are coming from. This game is basically for Albert Einsteins of our generation, so naturally I wanted to give it a try and see if I could build a rocket, go to the moon, and safely come back to Earth, all without killing perhaps the most important man in our entire operation, Jebediah Kerman. Unfortunately for Jebediah, the most complicated thing I've ever built in my life has gotta be a fire station Lego set, but how hard can this rocket science stuff be anyway? Personally, I don't believe in theory, so after launching the game I skipped the tutorial and jumped straight to the career mode. It took me around 5 minutes to figure out how to get to the actual rocket building part of the game, but now we can start using our brains at 100% capacity. Honestly, I'm not really sure how to, so I'm just gonna go off of my intuition. By intuition, I mean I'm just gonna choose parts that are available to me. I know when you look at it, the choice might seem overwhelming, but I think we can figure it out. Turns out building a rocket is actually easy. You just connect one detail to another and hope that it fits. Really makes you think why we're still not on Mars. It's very difficult to call that a rocket, so I'll just go with Kendrick. It's time to launch Kendrick 1. I have no doubt that our first launch will be a massive success, but hopefully it won't be the last one as well. Surprisingly, we took off, and that's more than I ever expected. Now that we're 20,000 meters up in the air, I start to realize that I have no idea how to land a rocket, but maybe if I fall into the water it will be fine. Maybe we should do a tutorial. Turns out my intuition was right. The only little detail I forgot was a parachute. This guy also told me to use mystery glue to get science. I'm not a fan of unknown sticky substances, but I'm not gonna argue. There are more tutorials, but I think we'll figure it out. Let's see if Jebediah will survive this time. So far so good. It's probably a good time to unleash my ghost, so I'll just do that. And this is the happiest I've seen Jebediah. Probably because this is the first time he's not gonna die. I know it might look like we're gonna crash, but don't worry, we've got a parachute now. And we gently landed. I was confused for a while about how to finish a flight, but after like 20 hours I chose the Space Center and recovered Kendrick 1. This flight gave us 12 science, $1,000 and 0 reputation. I think 0 reputation for such a clean flight is slightly disrespectful, but what do I know? I figured out that we can use science to upgrade our technology tree, so I instantly unlocked something that I don't even know. There is also some management building, but I'm afraid of making bad decisions, so I didn't touch it. And missions building, but I'm afraid of making bad decisions, so I didn't touch it. Ideally, my goal is to get closer to the moon with every launch, so you have to build a more powerful rocket. I replaced the flea engine with hammer engine. I don't know what I'm doing exactly, but it's bigger, so clearly it's more powerful. And I attached the thermometer to Kendrick. I guess my rocket can get sick. I collect the science and launch a rocket. This time we got into space, but scientifically it means that we crossed the Kármán line, which is located at about 100 kilometers above sea level. I think it's pretty interesting. Not like it matters anyway, because I fucking died. I think it happened because I was going too fast and too steep. Who would have thought that after reaching 100 kilometers going straight up, you're also gonna be falling for 100 kilometers going straight down. Let's try to angle the rocket for a more gentle entry. Now we should be falling at a smoother angle. Unfortunately, physics won, but let's try to understand what went wrong. As far as my intelligence goes, I think this happened because the front of our rocket was heavier than the back, and air was pushing harder on a wider back area, so these two forces made it flip, or something like this. We gotta fix it. I found out about the decoupler and put it in between my command pod and the rest of the rocket, so now when we're gonna be falling down, I'll just detach the pod from the rocket, and if my theory is correct, now we're not gonna flip because the flat bottom of the command pod is heavier than the nose. Just as I thought. Physics is no match for me. We got more science and unlocked survivability. I'm not really interested in survivability, but it had additional science equipment, so it was more of a long-term investment. Very quickly this investment paid off, and now we have Bob 1. Needless to say, it looks impressive, which I can't say the same about our next launch. Thanks to the progress, now we can get even higher. Unfortunately, gravity does not like my scientific aspirations, so all of my equipment burns in the atmosphere. We have to fix it. I found out about the heat shield. It will surprise absolutely no one, but it's supposed to shield me from the heat, so let's try it out. Honestly, I don't know what I did differently this time, but we didn't even burn. There's gotta be an explanation for that, but one of my favorite things to do is to not think about physics. My best guess would be that falling at 1000 meters per second is just not very optimal, but what do I know? Since you can only get science by reaching new places, we have to go even higher. For Bob 3, I decided to build a 2-stage rocket. The idea was to burn stage 1 to get into a suborbit, and then burn stage 2 to orbit Kerbin. It might sound like I know what I'm doing, but I actually don't. First, I couldn't get stage 1 high and fast enough. I tried adding more fuel, then more boosters, then after an hour I realized that it was a skill issue. I kept going up vertically, meanwhile to orbit you have to go fast horizontally. I couldn't help but notice that the best performing rocket looked like an elongated shaft with balls. After another hour doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different outcome, something clicked and Bob 3 finally penetrated the atmosphere with its long shaft and circled the Kerbin. I can't really explain how to do it exactly, but you don't need to know how the car works to drive it anyway. Eventually physics started to seem overrated because I consistently could land without burning up. I was very confident in my abilities, so I made the shaft of Bob 3 even longer and was ready to go to the moon. Trying to handle something that big in my hands was very difficult, but I managed to orbit Kerbin, burned enough fuel, and was on my way to catch the moon. Surprisingly, the moon keeps spinning around Kerbin and I completely missed it. Why things move in space anyway just seems unnecessary. My new plan was just to safely come back and try again, but then I blew up the moment I entered the atmosphere at 3000 meters per second, which just seems problematic no matter how you look at it. Honestly, I would prefer to keep this embarrassing incident between us, so let's just pretend it never happened. Undeniably, our enthusiasm is something to commend on, but eventually I realized that it might not be enough to fuel our entire trip to the moon and back. At this point I feel like we have all the needed parts to build a rocket that can do it, but our facilities are holding us back, so we have to get our funds up. Unfortunately, no one actually wants to pay you for doing an honest job of exploring space, so we have to do contracts for some big companies. For example, for this one we have to test an engine and meet these conditions, which shouldn't be an issue because we already know how to do these things, but there is an issue. This engine is massive and we have to activate it above 70,000 meters, but let's not give up yet. First I tried the design with 2 boosters on the sides, but something clearly was not right. Thinking is time consuming, so I just added more boosters. Hopefully that will fix the issue. Clearly the problem is that we don't have enough power, so I tried this design. I know it might look like the issue is something else, but you gotta trust me on this one. I attached 4 more damper engines to the main damper engine. What did I tell you? For the next mission I had to orbit Kerbin. I know we already did that multiple times, so I didn't want to show that, but this launch was perfect. I genuinely have no idea how I did it, so we'll probably never see anything like this ever again. Just like my dad. Now that we have money, I upgraded the tracking station, mission control and astronaut complex. Not sure what they do, but they do sound very important if you want to get to the moon. We also have 100 science, but I don't know how to use it best, so I researched something. I'm not sure if I'll actually use it. Let's test it all out. Now we have 2 additional buttons next to our Pokeball, prograde and retrograde. There is probably more complex explanation of what they do, but I like to think of them as forward and reverse. Now we can also plan our flight by using this tool. For example, if we pull a prograde marker, you can see our trajectory is changing, but it's not actually changing in real time. It's telling us what's gonna happen if we're gonna burn prograde at the center of the marker, and we can also see how much fuel it's gonna take. As you can see, I messed up because it's not the same trajectory predicted, but you get the point. Arguably the most important thing is that now Jebediah can get out of the rocket in space. This is probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. By the way, did you know that there is radiation in space? At this point we probably reduced the lifespan of this little guy by 20 years. I guess it doesn't matter anymore because I can't reach a rocket, so he's gonna die orbiting Kerbin. Let's just pretend this never happened. I think we should try going to the moon. I'm feeling confident. At this point Bob 3 looks like Bob 4, but I forgot to change changed the name. Now we have 3 stages. The plan is to use stage 1 to get to suborbit, stage 2 to orbit Kerbin, and stage 3 to get to the moon and back. Now that I said it out loud, I realized that none of my previous plans worked as expected. But statistically speaking, eventually there will be one that will work. I learned that you gotta angle the rocket earlier and try to gain horizontal speed. Not sure if I learned it right, so don't repeat it at home. Stage 1 is done. We don't need these boosters anymore. Let's burn stage 2. It hurts me to admit it, but I think the plan is already going wrong. Stage 2 is supposed to put me into an orbit of Kerbin, but we're not even close to doing so. Let's just improvise. What's the worst that can happen? Now that we're orbiting Kerbin, let's try to create a maneuver to the moon. Thankfully now we can see where the moon will be, so it's just impossible to miss it. I think we missed it. I believe this time the issue is actually simple. We didn't have enough fuel. As you can see, we ran out of stage 2 before we could even orbit Kerbin. Hypothetically speaking, I could also be an issue, but let's focus on the things that we can actually change. I think now we should have enough fuel, or how engineers like me prefer to say it, delta V. Technically speaking, delta V is your capacity to change the velocity of your rocket. For example, here to perform this maneuver to encounter the moon, we have to change our velocity by burning 857 delta V. So 2200 plus 850 will be just about 3000, and that's exactly the speed of our rocket after doing this maneuver. I feel like playing this game made me a little bit smarter. I probably won't need this knowledge anywhere else in my life, but it feels good to know one more niche thing that other people don't. Finally we did something right and didn't miss the moon. This is probably the greatest day of my life. Now I just orbit myself around it by burning in reverse, or how smarter people would say, retrograde. I wonder why humanity never went to the moon ever again. Is it because people constantly miss the moon encounter like me, or they're afraid of aliens? Either way, we're about to find out. Thankfully no one bothered with gravity on the moon, so landing is actually easy. I just burn in reverse until my rocket starts to slowly fall down. I also make sure to not fall too fast. Honestly, this landing couldn't be more perfect. I think I'm just natural. We should let Jebediah go out and explore the moon. That's a lot of science. I'm glad that Jebediah enjoys himself, but I think the moon is overrated. There is no aliens, no transformers, no nothing. I kinda see why people don't want to come here anymore. There's literally nothing to do. I think we should go back. I lift off, orbit the moon, and create a maneuver to go back to Kerbin. I'm not sure how to put it any other way, but I think we are fucked. We do not have enough fuel to come back. This is the closest we can get to Kerbin. It might seem like a horrible situation, but I think we can figure it out. I just learned that Jebediah has a jetpack. This makes it a solvable problem, and we can just push our pod closer to Kerbin. It might take us a couple million years, but I'm not in a rush. I'm starting to think that's not how it works, but I have another idea. I think if we spin our pod fast enough, it should make Jebediah throw up, generating enough propulsion to push us closer to Kerbin. Rest in peace. I'm not sure how to feel about what just happened, but this is the closest we ever got to climax, so I think we need to finish it off. According to my calculations, if we had about 300 more delta V, we could have landed back on Kerbin. I don't think that my piloting skills are that great to save this much fuel, but if I take the fuel tank from stage 1 and put it to the second stage instead, I believe we will have enough fuel for everything. My thinking behind it is that stage 1 is already powerful but heavy, so it wastes delta V on us and carrying all this weight. But if we put more fuel to the second stage, which is lighter, then I think we should have more delta V in general. I don't know if it makes sense, but I think it does. So let's try that out. You see how heavy these things are? This time I'm angling my rocket more aggressively to try and maximize my speed before we reach the apoapsis. This is a very cool sounding word that basically means the farthest point from the planet that we orbit. I also don't know if I'm doing it right, but since nothing explodes, I think we're doing a good job. I orbit Kerbin, and we still have 900 delta V in stage 2. Since to encounter the moon we will need about 870, it means that for once we did something right. I don't like to brag, but it's probably my fantastic piloting skills. Our trajectory is looking good, so now we just wait until we get there. If I think about it, it's gonna be really boring to be an astronaut. Let's orbit the moon and land. This time it was even easier to get there, but let's see if we can actually come back. At this point in the previous launch we had 1100 Delta V, but this time we have 1400. As you might remember, all we needed is 300 more to land back on Kerbal, so this could be the one. I'm also glad that to calculate all of that you just have to know basic math and nothing complex. Turns out rocket science is actually kinda easy. Let's collect all the science and see if we can come back. To get to Kerbal's orbit we just need 200 Delta V. Right now we have 600, which means so far we're doing everything right. Not really sure what exactly, but let's not question things that simply work. Now that we're orbiting Kerbal, all we need is 245 Delta V. We have 400, which means we still have some more to slow down our rocket for a smooth landing. Well, maybe we didn't slow it down, but I don't think falling at 3000 meters per second will be that much of a problem. I'm not really sure if I should start worrying right now or later. We're still going at high speeds and the pod keeps getting hotter. Honestly, it's not looking good, but let's focus on the positives. At least Jebediah is not cold inside. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I think it starts to cool down. I think we're good now, just as I calculated. Now we just gently land on Earth. Or in water. To be honest, I cannot believe that someone who looks like this managed to go to the moon and back without dying. Oh, never mind.